Hello, my friend, and welcome back to the Live Unrestricted podcast. Wow, do I have a treat for you today. And I know, it probably sounds like I say this all the time, but this one is really, really special. We are joined by none other than my friend, my girl, Kelly Lyons. So Kelly is a friend of mine. We've known each other for about, 2 years now. And she is a binge eating coach, and she helps women feel in control and at peace around food. And we have so much in common. And every time that we're together, we just chat for hours. I mean, this was supposed to be a 30-minute podcast recording, and we ended up talking for like 30 minutes beforehand off air, and then like another 30 minutes afterwards. And so you're just going to get so much value from this conversation because we're talking about something that's really timely. And it's how to handle these holiday months, right? Or as Kelly refers to them as the BER months. So September, October, November, December. September is already gone, but October, November, and December, where you have all of these food-centered holidays. And this is where there can be some of that anxiety that can start rising up around, oh my God, I can't control myself around Halloween chocolate or Hanukkah or Thanksgiving dinner. And maybe every year you tend to go overboard and then you restart on January 1st, right? Like this is a pattern that I was so familiar with for so long, and it affected, and you'll hear us both talk about our stories, but it affected my ability to truly enjoy those holidays and be present and have positive memories from them. So we talk about how we used to handle those holidays. We talk about practical strategies, mindset shifts, things that you can do, think about, apply in order to change the way that you navigate these holidays, not just this year, but for every year moving forward, so that you can appreciate, enjoy, be in the present around these holidays and not feel anxiety around what food is going to be served and am I going to lose control and what is it going to be like, and right, like all of that mental chatter that can make it really hard to enjoy it. And what I want for you is to no longer see this time of the year as something that revolves around food. Food is important. Food is really fun. Food is delicious, right? I'm a foodie, but it doesn't have to be your entire world, and it doesn't have to feel like it has control over you. So this conversation is all about that. I'm so excited for you to listen, and I'm just going to give you a little heads up. When Kel and I are together, it's like two little golden retrievers who find themselves. And so there's a lot of energy, but there's also so much value. So let's get into this conversation with Kelly Lyons. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in.
What's up, everyone? I hope you guys are doing well. We have such an exciting thing for you today. I've done this a couple times and I freaking love it. But what we are doing is I have my girl, Sabrina Magnan, on with me. And what we're going to be doing is talking about the BER months: September, October, November, December, all this stuff with food, the holidays, candy, feeling out of control, starting over on New Year's. It is a whole freaking thing. If you're a binge eater, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So real quick, again, my name is Kelly Lyons, and I'm introducing this because we're going to be on both of each other's podcasts, and it's going to be amazing. But what I do is I help women stop binge eating, stop overeating. And I know Sabrina has a similar incredible story, and we just help women be in control around food. So I think, yeah, Sabrina, was definitely you. You had this incredible idea for us to just like hang out together and talk about this stuff because more people need to hear it. So how are you, my love?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so excited because you guys are in for a treat. We're both crazy. We have insane energy. Kelly and I, like when we're together, it is just like something to be uneasy about. So you guys really have a treat. And for anyone who is wondering, like, where is Kelly's podcast? Can you first let them know? So if you're listening to this right now, you can find me on the Live Unrestricted podcast. And Kel, where can they find you?
Oh, good call. I wasn't even going to say that. And yeah, Sabrina and I both Virgos, like type A. So again, you want to hear this, but you can find me at the Food Freedom Society podcast. So this will be on both of ours, so you guys can tune in.
Amazing. Yes. So I love that so this was Kelly's idea to talk about when you said the burr months, I was like, what does that
Burr,
even
like it's
mean?
cold.
And then I realized like, oh yeah, it's true. October, November, December, and September too. So yes, these are months that are really difficult when you are struggling with binge eating, overeating, food obsession, guilt, shame, and for many reasons. So like we can even start there because it can be helpful to understand like why is this something that I feel so much anxiety around? And like the first thing is the obvious reason, which is there's so many food-centered holidays, right? So we're talking Halloween, we're talking Thanksgiving, and then the holidays, which is just filled with food. And also you're around people, you're around family that can make you feel anxious, uneasy. So there's just so many things that could trigger you into some of those old patterns. So I would be curious to know for you, Cal, you have your own history of binge eating. So what did those months used to look like and like how did you used to handle them?
Oh my gosh. Loaded question. But yeah, we're both going to share our stories. But I think the one thing before I get into my story is what I wanted to add that you said so beautifully. It's like these food centered events, and they all come in a really short span. But then the big thing is like, there is a promise at the end. There is the light at the end of the tunnel of New Year's, of January 1, of like hashtag like New Year, New Me. So it's almost like not only are all these food center holidays going around and happening, but it's like, oh, wait, but I'm going to be good after them. And
Hmm.
y'all know that's just like a hot mess in itself, which we'll talk about. So I feel like that's really, really important to talk about. And yeah, I'm laughing with the burr months. I'm like, ooh, burr. No, I do that, but it's actually the fall months. But yeah, so oh my gosh, my experience. So I don't know about you, but I am like one of those people when Halloween's done November 1st, I'm like kicking down my pumpkins, putting up my Christmas tree. Like I am ready for the holidays so freaking early. And this is my favorite time of year. I love Halloween, especially now with young kids, like getting them dressed up and so exciting. And I love Christmas. It's to the point like I could potentially still believe in Santa. Like like
It's part of your personality now.
it really is. I mean, and here's the thing, this has been my favorite time of year, just these last like couple months for years. But when I was struggling, it was this kind of like back and forth, right? Yes, this is my favorite time of year, but I had so much anxiety around it and so much overwhelm. And it was like I felt so tense because of this. I have to be good so I don't gain weight during the holidays.
Hmm.
And that would turn into like this really, really big snowball effect. So like as you guys know, right, we're going into like CVS and Walgreens and, Sabrina, you're in Canada. I don't know what stores are around you, but freaking Halloween candy everywhere. And what has that been like for a couple weeks now, right? And it's almost like this psychological, okay, well, Halloween's coming. So I know I'm going to be bad during Halloween. So I may as well just say F it and eat now. That's what my story was like.
Hmm.
And then I would feel so guilty around Halloween, right? And then, oh, well, Thanksgiving's coming. Why am I even bothering? And then Christmas. And there have been years where I have gained, no joke, like over 20 pounds
Hmm.
because it was this anticipation of the food. And I know I'm going to be bad. I know I'm going to screw up. I know I have no control around freaking Christmas cookies. Don't even get me started. It was almost like I would just throw in the towel
Hmm.
rather than eat them in moderation, feel good. And then January would roll around and I was like, I am going to kill the whole 30. I'm going to be perfect on paleo. I am going to lose all this weight. but then over and over and over. And it would just be this cycle. So that was my experience. And I'm sure you, Sabrina, and so many of our listeners have had that similar kind of story, but I would love to hear what it was like for you.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that you said that there is this like light at the end of the tunnel. And it's like, it's so much easier to sprint, like to run a sprint if you can see the finish line, right? Versus like running a marathon, you know, that you have to pace yourself. And so it's so much easier to be like, you know what? Like, okay, yes, I've just screwed it up. So I'm going to be quote unquote bad, but at least I'm going to be better in January. And that was definitely my experience. I cannot tell you how many no sweets January I've done because my mom is an amazing baker. I mean, she like makes the best desserts and best baked goods. And so what would happen for me is I so remember, especially during Christmas holidays, I would wake up earlier because we would have a Christmas brunch. So what I would do is I would wake up at like 6 a.m. before everyone was awake. And I would do this like really, really intense workout in the morning so that I could feel like I quote unquote deserved to eat that food so that I could like earn my food. And then I would end up overeating at brunch. I would end up overeating at Thanksgiving. And then I would just spend the rest of the day feeling so lethargic, so unhappy and uncomfortable. And I'd be like, you know what? Well, I never allow myself to eat these foods. So what I'm going to do is it's going to be like these like 2 to 3 weeks where I can eat whatever I want. And then in January, I'm just not going to eat sweets at all. And then what would happen is, you know, the first few weeks of January, I'd be like, I'm killing it. I'm doing so well. I feel so good. And then come February, it'd be like, oh, well, it's no longer January. Like I can go back. And then the Valentine's Day chocolates would come back out. And I think that's something that's so important to understand is that there's always a holiday, right? There's always something that's going to involve food. And so what we really need to do is we need to like address the root cause of what's happening when there's the holidays or the vacations, because as long as you don't address what's going on subconsciously, then you're always going to feel like you're either nervous or looking forward to that next opportunity to binge.
Oh my gosh, I love that you said that. You seriously took the words right out of my mouth. Like, I swear, we're like ESP, but there's always something. There's always an excuse to go into effort mode, whether there's always holidays, there's always a birthday party, there's always a happy hour, there's always a dinner out. And it's like when you're on this roller coaster of like being on, then getting off, being on, then getting off, you are literally getting off your diet, quote unquote, more times than you can count. Now, clarifying question about your mother's baking skills.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
She will make some for you if that's your question.
Oh my gosh. So clearly that was obviously my question.
Yeah.
Now, was that something where it was like once you hit October, like was that really where she would bake and you would lose control in a smaller window? Or was it like, boom, like end of the year, go nuts?
Yeah. So the way that I really worked was I was more in terms of I was sporadic. So it'd be like, let's say Thanksgiving weekend, I would really binge during that time. And for me, it was okay, starting again on Monday, really over exercising, being really, really good so that the next holiday, the next time, and usually it was just weekends in general, the next weekend that rolls around, then that's where the binging would happen. So it wasn't so much of like, ooh, it's going to be 3 months of nonstop binging, but more so like sporadic of looking forward, like almost, okay, now that Thanksgiving is done, the next thing that I can quote unquote save up for. And then I would like completely lose control in like sporadic seasons.
I love that. And I love that me and you have such a similar experience, but also different, where yours is, like you said, like the sprint, right? The light at the end of the tunnel, where mine was like, oh, it's October 1.
Yeah.
Somebody get me some Reese's and then we can just shape them like Christmas trees and pumpkins. And I think that's really important to note too, because a lot of people and I'm sure you have this in our programs where it's like, okay, well, I binge this way, or I eat this way, or, I maybe binge just like straight 24 hours nonstop. Or for me, it lasts for weeks. And, I just want our listeners to realize that no matter what it is, you deserve more than the way you're feeling when it comes to food, whether it's similar to Sabrina's story or similar to my experience. No matter what, it freaking sucks. And you deserve to live a life where you can be present for the holidays, present with your, the people in your life. Like, I know for me, I am so excited again because my children are young. We are in like prime holiday era. And if I was still struggling, I feel like I would miss out on so many of those really, really special moments where now it's like, yeah, I can have cookies. I can have my favorite pie, but it's not this like non-stop cycle. And I think the funny thing is, like, we used to every Christmas, and we still do it. You're one of 5 siblings, which is amazing. Kudos to your parents. I have 20 cousins, and a lot of us, we would get together around the holidays. We would do this like, Christmas baking cookie day, right? All day. And we would wrap them up and we would give them to like our neighbors or our teachers or whatever. I was never able to give a plate to anybody because guess what I did after the house was empty? I freaking cracked them open and I ate every single one. So it's not just what's being taken away from you, but also like how you're able to give and show people love and just be a part of the people's lives that you care about. So I think that's really, really important because a lot of times we think like, okay, we're food obsessed, we're gaining weight, we can't stop thinking about food, but we're not really also realizing like who else in our circle and in our life is it affecting? Because it is affecting not just you at all.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up because I know that even still, every time, like if I really reflect on holidays or just going out to dinner and I just walk away and I'm like, it's so beautiful and I'm so grateful that like there's not even a thought that goes through my mind of, oh my God, there's going to be food there. What is that going to be like? Like there used to be this mix of anxiety and like excitement. Like, okay, this is going to be great. I'm going to be able to eat all these foods, but also anxiety because it's like, I'm going to gain all this weight. And I know when I look back on the holidays that I used to have, and I talk about this story all the time, where it was my sister's baby shower. I was becoming an aunt for the first time. And I don't remember holidays with like happy memories of the conversations I had or the memories I made. I remember how I felt around the food and I remember how I felt around myself. And like, if we're talking about that brunch example, I would be so tired and in pain because I was over exercising in order to like make up for what I was eating. And like my hair was thinning out and you can't enjoy being around the people that you love and feel present and connected because you're like, oh my God, do I have the extra croissant? No, should I not have it? And it's like you're completely just living in your head and not able to really be there for the people that you love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, food literally is rent-free in your brain. And it's like, okay, there's a lot more to this. So I am so curious, what do you think, what was a big thing for you to kind of like get out of that mentality around the holidays?
So the first thing I would say, which is amazing question, by the way, one of the biggest things that comes up for me is to stop seeing it as I need to save up for this. Like what I used to do is, okay, let's say that there's Thanksgiving dinner tonight. So I'm going to eat really, really clean for the beginning of the day. Like I'm going to have a low carb breakfast. I'm going to save up my calories. And really all you're doing is you're preparing yourself to binge. Because not only are you creating deprivation for like foods that you enjoy, but you're also like racking up hunger. So I remember what always happened is I would get to these events and right away I'd be like, hey, what time are we eating? Because I'm starving.
Where's the food?
Yeah, like I'm starving. And I always use this example of like, when you go out to dinner and you haven't eaten enough before. And so you can't even concentrate on the person in front of you because you're just looking at the waiter. You're like, when is the waiter coming around? And then when you've put your order in, you're like, is that my plate? Is that my plate? Like you can't concentrate. And so that's really what it feels like when you're saving up your calories or you're eating differently during the day or even during the week. Like this could be in terms of weeks where you're saving up because you're like, okay, well, let's say it's December. Well, the holidays are coming. And so I'm going to be really, really good so that I can splurge on during those 2 weeks. So that's the first thing that comes up for me is like noticing if you're doing something different with your eating so that you can eat as much as you want and you can feel like this is the only time that you can do it. Because like I said, you're really setting yourself up for a binge.
Oh my gosh, I freaking love that. And I love that waiter. Like, because also too, I feel like that's me in general, just because I'm such a foodie. But yeah, when you get that obsession, you're like, oh, that looks good. Or you're like looking at what everybody else is eating. I think something that really stuck out for me is not only exactly what you said, right? Like saving up for it, but not being able, or I should say now being able to tune into my hunger and fullness cues and be okay with the way I feel. I vividly remember, I think it was Thanksgiving. I was sitting on the couch, my brother, and like my brother is one of those people that no matter what he eats, the kid has a freaking six pack. And you're like, dude,
My
like,
brother is the same.
and he eats so much. So I also think that was like a psychological thing in my mind. So we're watching TV, we're hanging out, and I was like, oh, come upstairs with me. We'll get more dessert. More, right? Emphasis on the more. We're going for like our second and third plates. And he's like, oh, I'm good, Cal. I'm not hungry. And I remember the first thing out of my mouth was, well, what does hunger have to do with it?
That's hilarious.
Hunger have to do with any of this? Like we're eating because it's time and it's Thanksgiving dessert and I need to make myself sick because I got to be good tomorrow. And I think for me, something that really helped me get out of it was recognizing not to focus on being good tomorrow. Because what happens is when we say, okay, I'm going to be good tomorrow, or I'm going to get back on track, or I'm going to eat clean, or whatever BS thing we tell ourselves, what happens is our brain says, oh, well, I can't have this tomorrow. I'm going to get my freaking money's worth right now. You know, I'm going to get the most bang for my buck. I'm going to get as much in as possible. So your brain doesn't recognize, oh, wait, no, you can actually go to the store and get an apple pie 365 days a year.
Yes.
It's the limits that we put on ourselves mentally where your brain says, oh, hold up. This is the last time I'm ever going to see this food. Give it all to me right now. And I struggled with that for a really, really, really long time. So I think a great starting point also is recognizing, okay, there is no end game. There is no, like you said, starting line or finish line or starting over, because all that's doing is giving you the allowance to eat right now.
Yeah.
Eat everything.
That's such a good point, because especially that's another thing that's difficult about the holidays is that there are certain foods that you're like, I don't eat this at any other time of the year. And one of the things that I had helped my client do, it was during Easter. And for her like quote unquote trigger food was Cadbury mini eggs, which are delicious and tend to really only come out around Easter. And so I gave her an experiment and I was like, okay, well, first of all, I'm going to encourage you to buy more bags. Like buy bags so that you know, okay, well, let's say I want to have some a month from now, 2 months from now, when they're not in stock anymore. You're giving yourself like psychological safety to know this isn't the only time that I can eat this food. And then the second thing too is just tuning into being present. Like putting those Cadbury mini eggs in a little bowl and just eating them and being present and having one at a time. I'll use an example last night. So whenever I buy candy here, Luke will have most of it. So like, that's just the way that it works. He loves his candy. And so sometimes how I like to eat candy is like, I take my time. Sometimes it takes me weeks or even months to finish one bag of like Sour Patch Kids. So I had made him a little bowl and he noticed, he was like, okay, well, if I know that I've got this little bowl, I'm going to enjoy every single one. And he turns to me and he was like, So turns out that I'm enjoying these more than when I just shovel 10 into my mouth. So
Yeah.
that's another thing is like, how can you bring more enjoyment and gratitude for what you are eating? And like for me, I'm always asking myself, like, am I really enjoying this? Like, am I enjoying this apple pie? Am I enjoying these Christmas cookies? Or am I only eating them because it's my only opportunity to do so?
Yeah, seriously. Oh my gosh, I love that. And way to like put your methods on Luke.
I know I've been really helping him eat
Oh my
intuitively
gosh,
the
I
past two
love that.
years.
No, that's amazing. And I was actually sharing with my members because what I like to do, and I'm sure you do the same, is like, okay, if I had an experience like this is the way I ate, this was my thought process, and I want to share it with people. And so last weekend I was at my cousin's bridal shower. And just in regards to what you were saying about enjoyment, like I think something that is so important is eat what you like. Because things that I would do if I knew that I was being bad or if I knew that I was going to screw up, so I made as eat now, I was eating stuff I literally could give two craps about. But I was eating it just because I knew I was being bad. Got to get it all in, got to get my money's worth. Where this past weekend, and what we're able to do now so easily is like, there were like, is an Italian restaurant. So it was like fried calamari, eggplant rollatini, blah, blah, blah. So I take a piece of eggplant rollatini, which I usually love. And I had a little like one or two bites and I was like, this isn't that good. I'm not enjoying it. So I don't need to keep eating it. And
Mhm.
instead, I can actually eat something that I love and that makes me happy. So instead of this black or white, all or nothing, I'm being good, I'm eating like I'm being good, I'm being bad. What do you actually like? Rather than just filling your plate with everything because this is your window, right? Got to do it up. What are you looking forward to eating? And when you are eating that, making sure there is no guilt attached.
Mhm.
Because the biggest emotions that drive binging are guilt, shame, and judgment. So, when we're having the apple pie, but saying, okay, I got to make this up tomorrow, right? Like what you would do. Or, we're doing something and it's like, ugh, I'm being so bad today. We don't realize that we are subconsciously putting a negative connotation with this food. And we are quite literally planning for a binge to happen again because we are having the food. We are feeling guilty. We are feeling ashamed about it. So what's the next step? Saying, why am I even bothering to be healthy? I'm never going to get where I want to be. I'm never going to lose weight. So then we just keep eating more. So
Mhm.
we have to recognize this guilt, shame, and judgment that we have around foods. It's literally perpetuating another binge, whether it's that day, in a couple days, next week.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm so glad that you brought up this notion of guilt because this was coming up for me intuitively as someone who I like to use this analogy because I find it helpful to use it in like different areas of your life. So as you know, I'm someone, and I'm sure that you can experience this too. I used to feel a lot of guilt when I wasn't working. So I was someone who always had to be productive. I saw it as like, hey, you've got 24 hours a day. Some of it is spent sleeping. And then when you are awake, you need to make the most of your day. You need to get as much done. And so for a really long time, I would feel so guilty resting, like doing something that I need in terms of my mental and my physical health. I would feel so guilty. And so what would happen is I would work, and then I would burn myself out. And then I would be forced into a few days or even a few weeks of like, okay, now we've got rehab, take care of myself. And then I would just go right back into like work. And so when I started seeing it as like, okay, if you look at someone who has like a regular job, you have nights off, you have weekends off for a reason, right? Like there's a purpose to working. You're paying your bills, you're being of service to society. Like there is a function for that time. But without the second piece of it, which is that rest and, taking care of yourself and play and connection, you will burn yourself out. Like you need both. And there's a function to the play and there's a function to the rest. Is one good and one bad? No, they complement one another. And if you don't make time for that, then you will be forced into time off. And so when I started seeing that and I started telling my clients about it in that way, it's like when you can see that there are some foods that are just there to be enjoyed. Like not everything that you eat needs to be this like high nutritious, quote unquote, healthy food. Yes, there's a time and a place for those foods. You want to have those foods, but also there's a time and a place for those foods that are just there for connection to be enjoyed, and they complement one another so that when you are having the apple pie, it's not like you're doing something bad. Like this should be part of your life too.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And like nothing drives me more crazy when like the Instagram influencers is like food is fuel. Bitch, no, it's not. It's a lot more than that. And think about it. I mean, the most memorable and traditions and holidays and celebrations, they are centered around food, and that is perfectly okay. And I love what you said about like the relaxing and play. And when I was struggling, it was like I would try to control my food so much. Shocker, type A perfectionist, Virgo, just like you, right?
Really big shocker there.
Yeah, right. It was like we had to control and know everything, and everything had to be perfect. And then what would happen is around the table, whether it was like a spontaneous lunch that my girlfriend would invite me to, or TJ would be like, hey, you want to go to happy hour? Something that was meant to be enjoyed would be this feeling of tension because I couldn't control it. I didn't know when I ordered my grilled chicken salad dressing on the side, how many ounces of chicken or how many tablespoons of ranch dressing I was going to be using. And then I would like bring a tablespoon to a restaurant. And it was this fear of relaxation and rest and play that should also be applied to important moments with food, just like you said. And I think one of the most beautiful things that our, clients and our members notice is a feeling of relaxation around food, where it doesn't, like, I cannot stress to everyone listening, guys, like, I know this is mine and Sabrina's career, but food does not mean so much.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be that big of a deal. What makes it a big deal is what goes on between our ears. And we can sit here we never would, but people can sit here all day and say, you have to eat keto, you have to not have carbs, you have to not have bread, you have to do all these things, blah, 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 blah. But until you fix what's going on in your brain, nothing will change. And that is why in our programs, that's the first thing we're doing, because we have to set that foundation, because like Sabrina said earlier, the weekends, they're always coming around. Holidays, always coming around. Events, birthday parties. And unless you have that strong foundation, you are going to continue this cycle. And there are people in my programs that have been struggling for literally 40 or 50 years. Because when I say I was like, oh, I struggled for 12 years, they're like, Kel, that's nothing.
Yeah,
right?
You're a child.
Literally. They're like, okay, shut up, little girl. But it's like they finally just feel that relaxation that they can like breathe again. Do you have those experiences? I'm sure with
yes, I actually had I had a client last week who on our coaching call was about to go on her first vacation since joining Food Freedom Academy. And she was like, all right, like I want to be able to enjoy this trip. I don't want to come back and feel like I have to weigh myself or start a new diet. I don't want to feel anxious around food. I just want to be able, like she was seeing her son and she was like, I just want to be able to enjoy it. And so this is actually a really good strategy that all of you listeners can do is I took her through an exercise of like, okay, so next week, when you come on our coaching call and you've come back from your trip, what will have happened for you to say, oh my goodness, this was such a success. Like it was one of the best trips of my life. Like what exactly would it look like for you to have the best trip of your life? And so she started telling me in detail what that would look like. And, not surprisingly, it wasn't, I'm only going to eat salads and I'm only going to eat quote unquote clean. It was, I'm going to listen to my body. I'm going to eat foods that make me feel good, but also eat ice cream and connect and just be present. And she posted in our Facebook group and was like, this is the first time I went on a trip and came back with no regrets. And it can seem like such an insignificant thing, but the way that I see it, it's like, I don't know about you, but I love traveling. And imagine spending the rest of your life being able to actually love traveling and look forward to traveling and holidays. Like these are things that make up a massive percentage of your life and your joy and the memories that you make. And so it is something that is so important to pay attention to.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely love that. And kind of like, I don't know, I think for our listeners, just taking that exercise and doing it right now, put us on pause, and literally write, what do you want to feel like after the burrs, after the burr months, right? How do you want to feel waking up after Christmas or Hanukkah or anything? And how do you want to feel? Do you want to feel the physical effects of everything that you've eaten and how sick and bloated and swollen? Or do you want to be like, oh my gosh, this was the first time that food was not the most important thing in my life? And then we can kind of like reverse engineer. Okay, if that's how you want to feel, what were the steps you took? So I think for our listeners, kind of like as we wrap up here, I think that's a really good way to walk away from this episode with something tangible. Hey, what do I want to feel like? What am I going to put to use that Sabrina and Kelly talked about? And how can I actually make this work for me?
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you leave it to the actual time that you're there, you will inevitably go back into autopilot to what you're used to what you've repeated. And so what you want to do is in a state where you feel relaxed and you're able to think intellectually and logically, then you can start writing down like, what exactly do I want to focus on, and plant that seed into your subconscious mind so that you can go into those events being like, oh yeah, I told myself that instead of just getting everything from the buffet, I would scan what actually sounds good and I would start with that on my plate. And so you're going to be able to, and I recommend like get as specific as you possibly can, like see it in your mind's eye, and you will notice how different your experience is going to be during the burr months.
The burr months. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so I know we talked about where you can find our podcast. For me, you guys can find me on Instagram at Kelly L Wellness, kellylwellness.com. And I know Sabrina does too, just so many resources for you guys. But the most important thing you would do is let's start with that exercise. And Sabrina, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me, like you said, on my podcast, Live Unrestricted, and also on Instagram at sabrina.magna.health. And yeah, please, if you listened on this podcast, go follow Kelly, send her a DM, tell her that you heard her on this episode. And also like, what were your biggest takeaways? And you've got, what are we? You've got 3 months now to really apply what we talked about today. So how can you take that? And what's the biggest thing that you're going to be applying into your own life?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And yes, of course, do the same for my girl, Sabrina. And also, I had no idea you pronounced your last name like that. That was really
I know.
funny.
I
You
know.
throw
It's
in
a
like
French
a pretty
name.
like French. Earlier, you said croissant and you were like, croissant. I don't even know what it was. But in my head, I'm like, that was really pretty.
It's because it's a French name. And whenever someone's like, how do I pronounce your name? They'll try to say it. And I'm like, just Magnan, however you want to say it is perfect because it's so easy to butcher.
Oh, I know. My maiden name was like a hot mess too. But yeah, Lyons, it's a lot easier. But so a
Yeah.
lot of people will pull like the Lyons. It sounds nice, but
Still
no.
sexy. Still sexy.
All right, you guys, listen, I cannot wait. Make sure you DM us, let us know your takeaways. And Sabrina, we 100% need to do this again because this
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for
All right, we'll see you guys
guys.
next week.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magna Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.